We went through a PV or a P, a Z, and a T actually. So we hit all three races, and yeah, it was basically just like don't worry about all the fancy things. A big thing was watching Duza, and he would send his queens around. He would constantly be doing drone transfers to try and optimize his drone count. And it was like, yes, those are all pretty things, but in the long run, when we looked at it, he had 20 larvae sitting around that were doing absolutely nothing. And it's like, if he would have just been spending his larvae and focusing on constantly just injecting, spending larvae, and just making and not getting supply blocked. If he would have just focused on those three things, he probably would have won the game. But instead, he was focusing on getting up to infestor broodlord armies and drone transfers and queen transfers and all the little micro things that you see the Masters players do that are really good and we will be learning later on like Wednesday, Thursday with Diamond and Master. But those are saved for Diamond and Master once you have all these skills down. As a Masters player, I don't need to worry about, or I already have these skills, so I don't need to worry about so then I can start worrying about the more complicated things, is what I'm trying to say. So as for gold, which we're going to be seeing today, I like that he's already kind of, he's smart with his build orders here. We're going to go ahead and go for the 15 hatch, which is a smart thing to do against a Terran. That's very safe. If you're doing anything else, I would recommend stopping it and just doing 15 hatch and learning how to hold early pressures, things like that, if you are having trouble with that, because it is so economically advantageous for you to do, and you might as well get away with a free early expansion if you can, which you can in this matchup. So something that I feel we can add and start focusing on in the Gold League is starting to notice some gas timings. I feel like you can start taking a third. In Bronze and Silver, you don't really need to take a third. I mean, if it's, of course, getting later in the game, yeah, feel free to take that third. But you should be able to win the game simply off of 2 bases, getting a pretty, maxed up army, or like a high supply army and attacking. If you're doing everything right with your drones and with your supply blocks being under control, you should be able to win fairly easily off of those 2 bases. And then Gold is where you kind of start looking at taking a third base, possibly. And of course also incorporating more gas timings into things. So when am I taking my gas? As we can see right here, Matt's not taking any gas, and he's going to have these bases up. And already right here, something I can note for Matt to improve, getting those queens out immediately at both hatcheries. Notice that there we go. So that right there was about 15 seconds that Matt could improve on of time to do something. So get those queens out right there. Definitely, because the faster you get the queens out, the faster those larvae come in, the more drones and everything you can make. Also, 28 supply blocked, no overlord on the way. So already there's some very, very basic things. And before you even think about this geyser right here, like right now Matt's focused probably on like, oh, I have to have my geyser down, I have to get my guys in my geyser. Just focus on the overlords, focus on that supply. These are the basics you want to build so that when you get up, and notice he's got like the rally point set to his third because he's got decent saturation here, to his natural and it's like, don't worry about all crazy amount of things like microing your queen around and stuff. Worry about the basics, the supply right now. Really, those are the key things that you want to start nailing down. Getting the drones, not getting supply blocked. Once again, another overlord should be on the way right about now. And then, of course, injects. There we go. So decent, honest injects right there. And some people ask, like, oh, what inject method should I use? Well, that's very, very dependent. But once again, there's that supply block. We're at 36, and now he's just spamming out overlords. That's not what you want to be doing. You don't want to have to spam out overlords. You want to be able to consistently just go overlord, some drones. Every like time you go back for a nice round of drones, feel free to hit an overlord. Whenever you're at that like 32 supply out of 36, 24 supply, 22 supply out of 26, that's when you should start pumping those overlords out, so they will be popped out in time. So Matt right here taking a third base. And something I also want to note is Matt did not scout, and I am actually okay with that at this level. I feel like scouting in gold level is not a necessity. I feel like you can be completely safe and content not scouting right now, and you can still find a way to manage and deal with things. Something that you're going to have to deal with, though, if you do not scout, getting an evolution chamber. In case banshees do happen to come around, something like that, it's possible you want to get your evo chamber. Also, I would suggest working on these gas timings a little more. And I know I was saying, like, at first I was like, don't worry about that extractor. I was kind of saying that for, like, the point of first just go back once again supply blocked and hitting that. So for Matt, I would say biggest thing right now, supply block. He seems to be really good about spending his larva when he can. You know, as soon as those larvae can pop, you're building units, you're building drones, you're doing a great job, you're expanding. You took your third at a decent time right there. So I would definitely say there's nothing wrong with your play in that sense right now. But I would say, once again, you're at the 78, and there's a supply block once again. So you're going to start having all these resources floating right here, and you're going to have to spam out more overlords like that. So really focus, because this is about the 5th or 6th supply block that we've seen so far. And up to the 8-minute mark, that's the most important time of a Zerg player's life, is what can you do up to that 8-minute mark. I'd also like to note the gas timings, as I was saying before. So let's just focus on a couple of things right here for Matt, because we do not want to get too in-depth where it's like, hey Matt, your lair was a little bit late or early, or hey Matt, this happened, hey Matt, this, you know, don't worry about anything like that. You're a little oversaturated in your main compared to at your natural and at your third. You know, like, do not worry about those things. Those are things that we can address later on when you're a diamond player, when you're a masters player. That's when we can start really worrying about those things. Those are going to add a little bit of difference to your game, yes, but right now, you know, there's some energy floating on these queens that could be used for better injects. There's a ton of supply blocks. Once again, we're going to hit yet another supply block here at 102, and we don't have an overlord on the way. So finally, he does get over there and scout out his opponent, excuse me, and morph in some banelings in as well. But right, so we have goal number 1, watch your overlords, and I want you to do this every single game. I want your eyes to be on your supply, and and that's it. I want your eyes to be on your supply, and every time you go back to build a round of units, I want you to look and think, okay, I'm going to build an overlord, and then I'm going to do something else, and that's it. And that's what I want you to focus on as your number 1 priority. Number 2 priority, I want you to focus on your gas, because look at all of the gas that you have, and you've had a decent amount of gas for a while. There was a good point in time, and now you're getting that infestation pit up, kind of, your evo chambers, but there was a good point in time where you weren't utilizing that gas at all. You had like 600 gas really early in the game, and there was absolutely nothing to spend it on. You didn't have upgrades. I don't even think you had a baneling nest for a while. You had 4 geysers, but you didn't have a lair pumping, and it was like, why do you have all this gas? If you're just going to get speed right there, sure, get down that 1 geyser, get your speed, and then you can chill on 1 geyser. If you want to then be teching up, which you probably should, around 45 supply-ish, I'd say, throw down 3 more geysers, get a lair. So you can kind of like time those together. I like your ability to react right here to these medevacs. So once again, I'm not going to harp too much on all of these other things, but look at your resources compared to your opponent's resources right now, and look at your supply. Once again, we're basically supply blocked because 6 supply, and there you go. Now we're supply blocked. We're trying to pump out tons of infestors. If we weren't supply blocked right now, we could have freaking, what, 8, 9 more infestors in our army. So 3 infestors versus 11 infestors, that's a difference right there. And I mean, you're doing great. Pathogen glands, you're taking a 4th here. Like, you're doing things well. But once again, look at the supply that you have at this time. This supply could be maxed right now. You could straight up be maxed on an army right now. I mean, even just looking at your resources, you could at least be at 175 had you simply just not supply blocked all those times, because it just kept holding you back. You know, every time you'd supply block, there's all that time waiting before you can build units, before you can build drones, which of course translate into more drones, more units, things like that. So just make sure you're kind of aware of that, because that's a big thing. And I love, you know, like I was saying, I love the little things. You're doing a lot of the little things really well, but the big things are what win you the game. It's not these tiny things that a lot of players think. Oh, I'm doing great because I got this good map control on these towers. I'm doing well because I'm, you know, well, I mean, injects are a big part of it, but I'm doing well because I'm transferring my drones around, so I don't have more than 24 drones on any patch. You know, like I was saying, those are nice things to have, but that's not That is not what's going to win you the game. I love the marine splits. That was beautiful. So that's not what's going to win you the game. What's going to win you the game is being straight up maxed a minute and a half ago and just charging over at your opponent and saying, well, deal with this now. And he won't be able to. So big things once again, because repetition is what people, what at least from asking the community kind of, they've been saying, you know what, repetition, tell me my goals, what I need to do, give me a couple of things to work on, and that is it. What do we have? I want you to tell me right now. Tell me what you have. All right. You take a pause. You think about it. You remember. Number 1, overlords. Remember to always have these overlords pumped out and watch those overlords. And number 2, your gas timings. That's right. We are simply going to make sure that we understand why we're getting all of this gas. If I'm getting 4 geysers, right, 4 extractors, and I don't have evo chambers down, I don't have a lair down, or a lair starting, and I don't have any intention to tech up really quickly, well, what position does that put me in? That puts me in a position where I have a lot of gas and absolutely nothing to spend it on. And ouch, this just hurts right here. You could probably fungal that. There you go. Chain fungal, chain fungal. Oh, he left the marines there for you. That was so nice of him. How thoughtful. Right, so, I mean, you know, and once again, I know that is something that you saw from Stefano or from Katz or from Idra or whoever it was. Oh, yeah, they did this cute thing with their infestors where they ran them over to their opponent's third, and then they dropped infested Terrans all around the third base right there to kill it off. I know that's something that you saw because I watched their streams too, and that's something I saw, and that's something I do. But I'm at the point where I'm not supply blocking all the time, where I'm not, you know, getting gas for no reason and having 5-6K stored in the bank when I still have a bunch of supply to move on, right? So here we go. This is yet another case of the Zerg. I need to get to the Stefano the crazy Zerg late game army. I need to have, you know, what do we have right here? 13 infestors and broodlords out, because that's the only way I'm going to break down this opponent. Remember what league we're in, you know? And that's not an insult at all, but that's a way of saying, remember that these are not the things right now that are going to win you the game. You need to focus on a lot more basic things at this point, which once again, what is it? Number 1, overlords, and I love the engagement right here before he gets those tanks up. Very, very beautiful. Try and nope, I'm not even going to give you anything else to do, but very nice engagement right there. Probably don't sack all your lings at that point. Infestors are nice to have in your army. Careful with those. There you go. Oh, that's hurtful. Spamming multiple fungals on top of each other does not do anything, just FYI. That's not going to add anything to it, so only do like 1 fungal per group. That's just a little note, nothing that you really should take away as a huge thing. But yeah, so here we go. We got the broodlords soon pumping out. We got the infestors. We got the bank to remax if needed. But this isn't, you know, this isn't what's going to win you the game, as I was saying before. So yeah, we went over number 1 right there, overlords. Just watch your overlords non-stop. Watch your overlords. And I don't want you to get supply blocked in a single game. And if you get supply blocked, I want you to sit there and say, how could I get supply blocked? All I was doing was watching my overlords. I want you to message me and be like, hey, I got supply blocked. And I'll be like, how'd you do that? And you were like, well, I stopped watching my supply. And I'll be like, well, what did we learn? Watch your supply more. And the thing is, once you start doing that, once you start watching it, pretty soon it'll become a glance, you know? So in a week from now, whatever it is, however it takes for you to kind of learn, I mean, you're still going to eventually get supply blocked, you know, of course that happens. I still have that happen to me sometimes. But you'll start learning. You'll be sitting there and you'll start getting like supply block, but you'll be like checking. You'll take really quick glances to the top right of your screen and you'll look at your supply. Or it'll become habit to simply press that V button right at the beginning of a round of units. So as soon as you're starting to invest in getting out those overlords, or as soon as you're starting to invest in a wave of roaches, a wave of drones, a wave of lings, whatever it is that you're investing in, you can simply just switch over immediately and go, oh, you know what? I need to... Ouch. Ah, I like that attack. Very nice, very nice. A little lucky that nothing was there to defend it, but I like it. So as soon as you start getting to that point, it'll just become habit to build those overlords in time. And then you'll also have the eye glance to that supply that you don't normally have, which I'm imagining right now you don't check your supply and think, huh, I wonder what my overlord count should be right now. And that's fine. You know, it's totally fine that you aren't doing that, but that's something that you'll want to do in the future. Ooh, I would have probably just focused down that command center at that point. So I'm going to give little notes, you know, just things that you can kind of think about. But I don't want these to be your game changers. I don't want this to be the reason that you're going to win or lose a game, because it's not. But setting those lings, if it was already that weak right there and his army was all the way over there, I would have just left those lings to surround it, just right-click that bad boy, kill it off, and then back out with whatever you have left, because that would put him in a horrible situation. As you can see, he would not have that base. He is almost mined out on that base, and he is mined out on that base. So he would be left with basically no income instead of the 1,000 that he has. So right now already, once again, I want to say beautiful drone saturation. You know, you're doing a lot of things right, and you're very close. If you just clean up the small things, you'll be in such a good position. And you have all those corruptors, but you didn't make broodlords. Oh, there they are. You have to attack with broodlords. Nice fungal growth. And I would imagine you'd be able to win this battle right here. There you go. Alright, so you know this is good. You can start using those broods to kind of like siege here. Other little things to think about with these infestors on this map, you can drop infested Terrans right along here, or you can drop them right at the back of the mineral line right there, and this shouldn't be able to reach those. So just things to think about, you know, dropping them up here, dropping a couple down there, and killing off all those SCVs, or coming back here and just fungal growthing all of his SCVs. So like I said, these are not things I want you to be like, oh, this is why I didn't win this game, because I didn't have infested Terrans right here. No, it was because you kept supply blocking, and that just hurt you so bad, and never maxing out. You're sitting at this 170 supply a lot, and it's a little curious to me. And there you go, I like that you're starting to use these guys to probably not attack this. I'd probably go after the SCVs. There you go. And careful, you gotta have those infestors ready to fungal. And this is why, oh, you brought the links, but this is why I say going for that super awesome, crazy, amazing late game army isn't always like the way to go, because you're not going to have the micro really at this point to deal with that. So you had those infestors down there, and you left them down there, and you have these 3 broodlords right here, but you're busy dealing with this. Those are going to chill right there. Okay, now you're finally moving them. But like when those broodlords that you had, the 2 right there that were going at it, were getting picked off, your infestors were chilling back here. Because that's a lot to micro. It's hard to micro all of that. It's hard to continue your injects, all those things, and yet get back to this army and deal with this army. That's just a tough thing to do. It's a very micro-intensive process. And now you have to deal with the units up here, and I mean you're sending some units. I don't know if that'll be enough. If you get around, it should. Yep. So it's just like dealing with the little things. Dealing with all the micro from this army is just really, really tough. And I mean, you're in a good position though still in this game. But look, now these Marines can start flying underneath here, picking away at these broodlords, and you lost a couple broodlords right there because hey, you had brought your infestors back. They're chilling right here, not doing anything. You have Lynx sitting right here, not doing anything, and you're trying to focus too much on like all these, you know, big units and things like this. So I'm interested to see how, if you lost this game right here. I would imagine you won this game. So, generally people send in games they lost. But you know what? Regardless, you can still send in a game you won because there's still things to improve on in games that you won, right? So we still saw, hey, what could I improve on in this game? And once again, I'm going to ask you, what can we improve on to win this game? Yes. By the way, drone transfer. That is right. So we can improve on number 1, watching our supply nonstop and never, ever, 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 ever getting supply blocked. Do not ever get supply blocked when you are working. That is all I want you to work on as your main priority. Number 2, as your secondary priority, once you never, ever, ever get supply blocked, I want you to start moving into watching your gas timings and realizing why you're taking gas when you are. Simply taking that one gas to get speed, cool, that's good. Maybe getting the layer off of that, cool, that's great. But you had a second gas, you had a third gas, you had a fourth gas, and you didn't have a layer down, and there was nothing to really utilize all of that gas right there. So, good job, nice win right there. But definitely some places to improve. So lots of good things, but focus on the big things, the big basics. What's not going to win you the game is those little brood infestors that send the infested Terrans around. What's going to win you the game is what we just talked about for a while right there.